When you're doing any type of physical activity long enough, you'll eventually encounter a paradox. You see, doing the physical activity is overall good for you. It's good to stress our bodies, to exercise, but you'll eventually develop some sort of injury from the physical activity that you're doing, or the physical activity will exacerbate an injury that's already existing from something else. Now, on the flip side, if you don't do any physical activity, your body's degradation will speed up. Your body needs to be stressed to stay strong and healthy. But as I just said, stressing your body can result in injuries. So what do we do about that? Well, first understand that, again, if you're doing something long term, you're going to have to train through having some injuries. And the biggest thing to that, I think, first is letting go of your ego, because if you have an injury that gets in the way of doing things like a group is doing them, in the case of martial arts, you might feel a little bit uncomfortable or embarrassed because you're limiting. But remember that limitation offers an opportunity to build specific skills. A martial arts style in itself is a limitation. It's saying we're going to focus in on these things specifically and exclude all these other things so that we can get really good at this core material here. If you tried to take in everything at once, you'd never get anything done, just because there's just too much to do. Physical movement is too broad. Martial arts are endless in possibility, so you have to have limitations. So let's say that in the case of Taekwondo, which is largely known for its kicking, you hurt your knee or your hip. I myself have had several hip injuries, and my mom, who's an instructor here, has had a knee injury she's dealt with for most of the time she's trained. And so there may be times where you can't throw kicks or can't throw them like you would normally. But the question you then have to ask yourself is, what can I do? And instructors are always happy to accommodate your limitations and give you things to work on that you can in fact do. And here's the great news. When you focus in on those things that you can do, that gives you time to really build that specific skill. And you'll be a much better martial artist in the long run having done that, rather than having discontinued your training due to the injury. Now, obviously, if it's a really bad injury, you do need to take time to rest it. But even when you're resting, you can work on all kinds of things. Maybe it's just a simple, really working on making your fist. You can do that while you're resting. You can work on, the different hand positions and getting really good at those in the case of Taekwondo. If throwing your leg out quickly is something that you can't do, you can work on your balance and stability and hold your leg up and build your stabilizing strength as you're recovering. It's becoming more and more understood that recovery actually happens more quickly when you stay active. Our bodies were designed to recover under some movement. So being completely still is usually the last thing that you want to do in the case of injury. I had a student last night who asked about push-ups. They were having pain in the elbow, not sure why, but push-ups were just a problem. I don't know the specific reason in this case, but I gave them an alternative to do like a climbing plank. So you're in a plank and then you stand up out of the plank, then you go back down into the plank, up out of the plank. So you're doing that movement, which didn't hurt the elbow, and you're getting a lot of the same benefits that you would get doing a push-up. So in the case of substituting an exercise, try to find something that works the body in the same way, but doesn't agitate the injury. In the case of technique, you can find a totally different technique, or again, you can find a way of doing the technique that doesn't agitate the injury in the case of slowing it down, working on the stabilizing muscles, or working on the positioning. But remember, there's always stuff that you can work on, even if half your body is out of the picture due to an injury. And remember that eventually you'll have one of those things happen, being involved in something that's physical long term. So that's really an easy time to give up. It's a very easy time to step out of the training And then understand it's so hard to get back in. Once you've destroyed the habit that you've built, it's so hard to get back in and get it going again. So try not to let that happen to yourself. Find something to work on that keeps you motivated, moving, and recovering.